Faithful Muslim are what we call radicals and fundamentalists. Compromise, or at least Muslims who are not knowledgeable, let's call, I don't want to use the word ignorant, but they just don't know a whole lot about their teaching, are the ones that are either, we call them, sometimes cultural Muslims, benign Muslims, nominal Muslims. The radicals will say compromise Muslims, who are selling their soul basically to the world and to the West and everything else.
And when it comes to their view of what Islam is going to do in the world, part of that is what radicalizes them too, in the sense that they have a particular view of end times, they have a particular view of what Islam is going to do in the world, and that they see themselves as a part of that, correct?
That is correct. And they see themselves even part of bringing it to fulfillment. I mean, which is extremely dangerous once you begin to think that the end is dependent on you. And that's true of Islam, by the way. The God of Islam, if you truly study his character, he's always dependent on his creation, yes, and the mankind to fulfill his purposes, to the point that you feel like he cannot do anything on his own. I mean, case in point, he himself did not appear to Muhammad, never appeared to him, never talked to him directly, but somehow the claim is that an angel was taking his messages and talking to Muhammad. Yet when you go to the Old Testament, God himself appeared. He appeared as a person even before the New Testament, before the incarnation of Christ. And we have many evidence of that, as the angel of the Lord, as the person who appeared to Abraham, and the list can go on and on and on.
Exactly. And so in their view of Islam as a political system, their goal is to take over the world.
That is absolutely correct. And with all due respect to my Muslim friends who will be watching this, and they may be up in arms, that is exactly the teaching of the Quran. The Quran teaches you that you ought to fight until Allah's name is declared universally. That you have to fight them until the name of Allah basically is universal, that you have to cast terror in the heart of the unbelievers. And there are a number of passages that talk about that. And, Islam is the only acceptable religion by God. That's in chapter 3 of the Quran, for instance, verse 81 all the way to 85 talks about things like this. All of these references, and the fact that the Muslims are the best creatures that are made for mankind. In other words, the rest of the creatures who are not Muslims are second class. I mean, right there, you begin to see the distinction that is being made. But when you study, Islam and its commands to spread itself, the use of violence and the use of terror is always associated with that.
So it's not spreading the teachings of Islam through influence, through preaching and things of that nature, like Christianity.
That's what the interpreters, that's what the clerics will tell you, that's what the Islamic scholars will say, that's what the modern Muslims will try to tell you, simply because they feel embarrassed by something like that. And even if you find some verses, for instance, there is a verse in the Quran that talks about the fact that you have your religion and the Muslims have theirs. It's been canceled. It's been abrogated, So the fact that it's there doesn't mean that it's, applicable anymore.